Hello and welcome to Meet the Red Cross. I'm Dave Griffith. I'm the Executive Director of the Capital Area Chapter of the Red Cross. And I have two guests with me today. The first guest that I have is the Chairman of the Board of Directors for the Capital Area Red Cross, and that's Gabe Hulsey. And then we have another of our disaster volunteers, disaster staff that's with us that will be joining us in the second half of our show. But Gabe, welcome to Meet the Red Cross, and glad to have you here with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about being the chairman of the board of the Red Cross Capital Area Chapter and really what that means.
Well, this is the third year. This is my final year of being the chairman of the Red Cross. I've been associated with the board since 2004, and really what it's involved really is just change management, helping the board and the community understand some of the change that's occurring within the Red Cross and the different structure that's being set up, but also helping promote the brand of the Red Cross, awareness of the Red Cross, as well as bringing people into the fold in terms of getting involved in regards to volunteer or even financial assistance to our mission.
Okay. Anytime that we're involved in any one particular organization, there seems to be a passion or a reason of why we're involved in that. What got you involved, and why are you involved with the Red Cross?
Well, I'm originally from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and we moved up here in 1986. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and we were living over just not too far from here, over in Clark Street. And we were in an old house. We were refurbishing it and trying to get the house back in order. And we were staying there for free because it had very little plumbing. The windows were still shut, no air conditioning, no refrigerator, no telephone, the whole 9 yards. Well, we were working on the plumbing earlier that day, and there was a tornado back home down in Cape, and so we went to what was a Phillip 66 right across from Echo Lounge and called my family back home and to see if everybody was okay. They were. This is in the middle of July, so it's hotter than Hades. And while we went, there was no cow trough in the back, and when we got back home, we got in it, and all of a sudden we heard this loud crash. Went in, the ceiling had fallen through.
Oh.
The water we had kept the water on upstairs. It overflowed. The weight of it crushed the ceiling, and it fell in the kitchen. Well, we got everything cleaned up, got relaxed, and all of a sudden we start seeing sparks and fire coming out of the kitchen. Well, the stove had caught on fire. Well, Mom and my sister went, running outside, knocking on folks' doors. My dad stayed in trying to beat it. It was crazy, but he tried to beat it down. Smoke was throughout the whole house. The fire department came. Well, there was no way we were staying there that night. The folks that came and helped us and put us up in the Super 8, what used to be the Super 8 over on Stadium Drive, was the Red Cross. And I'll never forget the feeling I had when I walked in. Like I said, there was no air conditioning. And I'll never forget walking into that hotel room and seeing my mother lay on the bed and that sense of relief that I had. I've never forgot that. And so in 2004, when I was asked to be on the board, my mother reminded me of the story. And her comment was, when much is given, much is expected. And that idea that the Red Cross at that time took care of my family, and it was my responsibility I might never know the little boy that we help and put up in a shelter in their time of need, but I know because of the hard work of the volunteers and the staff, there's been a number of folks that we have done exactly what my family was in. That kind of generosity has been shown to thousands of families in my time of being with the Red Cross. So that was the passion that really has driven me. And I always think about that little boy. Are we taking care of that little boy? And that's something that's very important to me.
Well, absolutely, and we've all got our stories, and everyone that's involved with the Red Cross has got a story as to why they are involved. Let's talk about the board just for a few minutes, and really a couple of questions is, what is the role of the board, and how important are they to the American Red Cross Capital Area Chapter?
The board's role is really advocacy, and promotion of our brand, getting us out into the community. We've been very strategic over the last 3 to 5 years about, getting folks that might be in the part of the fire department, police department, part of the military, business leaders. Also, because we cover 21 counties in the capital area, we've tried to get people from various locations to represent that demographic. And we've also been very keen and very focused on getting more women involved in the board. Age, balancing the age, because there's folks that are in the mid-20s that have a lot to offer. There's folks that are retired that have a tremendous amount to offer. And really our goal has been to bring those folks together in order to promote the mission of the Red Cross. And so, because all those folks have different talents and different skill sets, their role is to go out and bring their talents and skill sets back into the Red Cross, whether that means philanthropy, whether that means what we're doing right now in terms of developing a Club Red, like a young person's group to get more young folks involved. It also means being more present to our military services. It also means really developing donors. That's our lifeblood, and being cognizant of going out and finding folks that would give to whether it be on the corporate level or the individual level, but giving to the Red Cross, and whether it be their time or through a donation.
One of the follow-up of that is, what are some of the priorities that the board has for this year?
Well, first and foremost, we have to improve our fundraising. Times are tough, and we know that, but the lifeblood of our organization is through individual and corporate donors. And one of the ways, and like me, the mission of the Red Cross is to help alleviate human suffering. It doesn't matter whether it's race, gender. It doesn't matter if you're the wealthiest person in town or the poorest. In your time of need, we're there to support you. And whether sometime in your life someone has been benefited by the Red Cross. And so our goal is to bring that out. To get people involved, really to the idea of the mission of the Red Cross. And like I said, whether that's through a donation, or whether that's through time or services, or opening our doors to their employees. That's really where we're really searching for this next coming year. The other, to improve that process, that's our goal for next year. And part of that is one of the things that I'm really excited about is the development of this group called Club Red. And Club Red is a young person's group, and we've called it Young Persons because we are looking for not just business professionals, but also stay-at-home moms and dads. We're also looking for nurses, all those folks that teachers, folks that might not necessarily, when you title it young professionals group, they might not see themselves in that field, but there is a place for them. And we get, we're developing the organization right now, the club right now, and some of the, most fervent volunteers are nurses and teachers and folks like that, and it's just awesome bringing them into the fold and helping use their talents to help us with our mission.
One of the challenges I would think that you would probably have with the capital area chapter, and I think when people think of capital area, they think, well, this is just Jefferson City and Cole County. Talk to us a little bit about the number of counties that the capital area encompasses and how the board is going to be able to address those, all of those.
Well, we have 21 counties that we represent, and that's going from essentially, Mexico, just above Columbia, Audrain County, Montgomery County, all the way down to Pulaski County, Rolla, Fort Leonard Wood, the Lake of the Ozarks. And so that's a tremendous challenge for us as an organization. One, to develop volunteers in that, because that's the backbone of our organization. I'm really proud of our chapter for having the level of committed volunteers, over 300 that we have in our chapter, and that's something I'm very proud of. But how do we continue to develop that? And it's concentrated in this area, so, Jefferson City area. So our challenge really is how do we develop that in the Columbia market, in the Rolla market, in the Fort Leonard Wood market, in the Lake of the Ozarks market. And one of the things that we've been attempted to do is to bring people of influence on the board, and then use them to help us, reach out into those communities. Right now, we've got a Club Red that we're setting up here in Jefferson City, but we're going to search, we're going to look to set up one in the Columbia market, the Lake of the Ozarks market, but then also develop, and from that, really develop advisory, committees or advisory boards, in order to help us, infiltrate that market that we're not as versed in. And try to pull out some key players in that market that could continue to help us grow and promote our brand.
We talked about board development. How do you and you kind of mentioned some key stakeholders that are with the Red Cross, and if somebody's watching today, and they've got an idea that they might have a skill set that can help the Red Cross. What really are you looking for? I know we're looking for young people. We're looking for older people as well, retired people.
I'm looking for retired people too. You're all right. We spread a gamut.
Exactly, but so often I think we think, well, I've got to have some kind of qualification for it. How would you address that question? Who's qualified to do that?
Well, really anyone that has a passion, quite frankly. I mean, anyone that understands our mission, that's passionate about our mission of alleviating human suffering. And the cool thing about the Red Cross that I feel is, if you're interested in disaster, for instance, if there's a fire, our disaster volunteers get called at 3 in the morning, and they go out and they help that family. They help that family find shelter. They help that family find clothing. If that's something that gets you excited, then that's your calling. And the thing about it is we do training. I mean, we don't just throw you out there and you're all of a sudden, going to get a call at 3 in the morning to go take care of a fire and do casework and things like that. We send you through really concentrated, training on, how do you handle a case? How do you handle a client? What do you do in terms of follow-up, especially if you go on like a major disaster, whether it be Joplin or, some of our folks, this last year we had a ton of flooding down in the Boot Hill, or even the tornadoes in Sedalia or St. Louis or Joplin. We just don't send you out there. You have to be mentally prepared to see what you're going to see and to deal with what you're going to deal with, and then also know how to handle each client and each situation. So there's a tremendous amount of training that we put you through. So if that's something that you're interested in, absolutely. If you're also just interested in fundraising or helping promote the mission of the Red Cross, that could be through our philanthropy committee. We have different committees that we put people on, whether it be philanthropy committee, communication committee. The board and the staff run that, but they have volunteers within that committee that a person that that has a skill set, maybe in social media, and that's an interest to them. Well, then that we could help work with you, put you within the communication committee, and and then that person could help promote us through social media.
Last question, real quickly. One of the big events that we have in Jefferson City, and we've had for a number of years, is the Day of Heroes.
Yes.
I know that we've got a committee that's formed that's going to be talking about that. Tell us a little bit about that, and if there's some people out there that are watching that have somebody that they want to nominate for that, how they might go about that.
Well, the Day of Heroes is a tremendous event. We've been doing it for the better part of 10 years, and the neat thing about the event is that it promotes and celebrates just everyday heroes in our lives, And matter of fact, we have someone on the board, Kayla Winter, who is a former recipient of the Day of Heroes. She was a lifeguard, and but anyhow, the Day of Heroes is an opportunity for us to celebrate everyday people that live the mission of the Red Cross. We're going to have it here in June, and we're going to have if they want to get involved, if they have people they want to nominate, we'll have pamphlets throughout town that you can fill in, send into the Red Cross, and of course then we'll have a selection committee and pick the person that would fit that award. But we're very excited to get that back on track and promote our mission through that. It's just a wonderful event and a great way to showcase ourselves to the community.
All right. Gabriel, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it. We're going to just take a short break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. We're going to be talking with Phillip Iman. Phillip Iman, he is our disaster coordinator for the chapter, so stay with us.
Thank you.
In America, you are not required to offer food to the hungry or shelter to the homeless. There is no ordinance forcing you to visit the lonely or comfort the infirm. In fact, nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have to provide anything for anybody. Thank you for all you've given. Imagine what more could do.
Welcome back to Meet the Red Cross, and as we promised you before, my next guest is Phillip Iman, and Phillip is our disaster coordinator for the chapter. And Phillip started off as a volunteer with us for a number of years ago, and has since moved into a staff position, and I'm sure he's got a lot of stories that he could tell us. And we're probably going to have you back on a show sometime in the very near future. But Phillip, you might just tell us about how you got involved with the Red Cross.
Well, that's kind of interesting because I was a long-time blood donor. Started when I was 18 years old and just kept continuing, following the example set by my parents. And at the blood donations, got to know the chapter director in Mexico was at every donation site. And so we got to know each other, carried on a conversation. She asked me if I wanted to become a DAT member. Well, I had no idea what DAT was, but I wanted to help people because that's the environment I was raised in. So, and I had a background in construction. I thought, well, this is my opportunity to get out there and help people pick up the pieces, when a disaster happens. Well, very quickly I found out that I was helping people pick up the pieces, but it was picking up the pieces of their lives, not their homes. Yeah. So that's where it all came from, is being associated with the blood drives and then getting started with that. And after that, I was just hooked.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about some personal stories here in just a few minutes, but first off, I want you to tell me, a disaster coordinator, what exactly are your responsibilities as being the disaster coordinator for the Capital Area Chapter?
Well, my very biggest task is our volunteers. I'm tasked with recruitment, with training, and retaining the volunteers, to making sure that when disaster happens, that we have a group of people that are ready to respond. Then I'm also tasked with maintaining and building relationships with community partners.
Okay. Well, I know that there have been a number of events that have happened just in the 25 years that I've lived here, and I know how the Red Cross has responded to those. And in many of those, the World Trade Center in 2001, Katrina just recently in Joplin. We've had volunteers from our local chapter that have been there, and tell me about some of those and the commitment that they have to what they do every day.
Yeah, and that's interesting. We've had volunteers that started back in '93 with the floods that came through here, and have been with us ever since. They've responded to, like you say, the World Trade Center, the bombings there. But we've also had volunteers that, brand new volunteers that have gone to disasters like Joplin or like Nashville last year. So it really takes that special person, though, to give that kind of commitment. There's two different levels, really. It's the ones that have time to be able to respond locally, that they can take a few hours out of their lives to go out and help people. But then when you take that extra step, I like to call it the icing on the cake, when people go the extra mile and will go out for a 3-week commitment to a national disaster where you're totally immersed in helping other people. It is an adrenaline rush like none other.
Yeah. How do you, as a disaster coordinator, do you pick and choose who's going to go to those kind of events, or is that something that's done nationally, or how are those people chosen?
Well, they actually kind of choose themselves, so to speak. First, you have to have the training for the task the activity that is needed. The Red Cross is like a huge company with all these different activities that go on. It's like any big company where you have the different levels of jobs and so forth. So once you've got the particular training in that area, that makes you available. The second thing is that you have to be healthy enough to go out to be able to respond to that disaster. And then finally, are you available to go out and respond? So if you've met those 3 requirements, you put yourself in as available to go. Then the national organization picks from, they pick from the area that's affected, and then after they've exhausted the supply of volunteers from that area, then they reach out to the next closest areas. And a large disaster like Katrina, obviously, it comes from all over the United States. So that's basically kind of how it is. You make yourself available, and then they'll choose from the pool of available volunteers.
Now, let's talk about protocol just for a little bit, and the protocol that takes place when a disaster happens. And I'm talking a disaster from the magnitude of a Katrina to the magnitude of a family losing their home. What are some of the protocols and procedures that you go through as the coordinator to help those people out?
Well, first, we don't chase disasters. We act upon the request of either the family or friends that are affected, or upon the request of the emergency response organization. And typically that's where it comes from, fire department, police department, something like that. So the call will come in to our volunteer that's on call. They'll turn around, call myself to verify that, yes, we're sending out volunteers to this particular disaster. Immediately, they're going to verify that disaster with the responding department, the fire department, or whatever department that would be meeting the client's need. Then once we've done that verification, we actually set up a time to meet with the client at their convenience, whether it be on location at the site of the disaster, or would it be better to meet the client the next day. Once we've done that, we conduct an interview. We determine their immediate emergency disaster cause needs. Then we kind of try to determine with them how we can best help. So what's your needs? And then how can we help meet those needs based upon our guidelines, and then also through community partnerships. That's a big part of what we do. The Red Cross is simply a player at the table when it comes to disaster relief. We're able to redistribute the donations that people give to the Red Cross, but we're also able to give out referrals to partner agencies, and that's really what it's all about, is everyone working together to meet the needs of people affected by disaster.
Well, that kind of follows up with one of the questions is where do those funds come from that we are able to give to people?
Well, for the most part, it's donations from the American public. You and I and everyone listening today. That's how we exist. Now, we do receive sometimes grants that will help us with specific projects and stuff like that, but for all intents and purposes, it's donations from the American public. We receive no funding from the federal government. Simply because the organization we're independent, we're universal organization, and we're neutral. So we have to maintain that status by not accepting funding from the federal government.
One of the things that I've noticed, and just in the short time that I've been with the American Red Cross, is that the credibility that we have, and that and the trust that firemen have into us, that police have into us. How has that been developed in the time that you've been involved?
Well, I want to go a step further. The American Red Cross has been responding to disasters for well over 100 years. And over that time, they have built that reputation. And so when you see the American Red Cross, you know what to expect. And that's what we do on a local level too. And from the time I've been involved as a volunteer and as a staff member, you follow through and you treat everybody equally. This is what the American Red Cross can supply. We're going to help meet your immediate emergency needs, disaster cause needs. So by following through each time, when a responding agency calls or when a client calls, they know what to expect from the Red Cross, and they know when you say that you're going to send somebody that you do it.
Okay. Not to be negative, but are there times when we can't provide assistance?
Well, yes, that's very true. And it's we have our mission guidelines, and that's to prevent and prepare for and respond to disasters. So within those guidelines, we base our assistance on the disaster cause needs. So we get many, many calls from people who are facing a situation that in their eyes may be a disaster, but does it fit within the guidelines that the American Red Cross has put together, and that is that it is a disaster, a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, either one, but it is something that has occurred that would be out of the ordinary and wasn't the fault of the client, for instance.
Okay. Well, I have the real privilege. Mike Flanagan, our Director of Communications, sends out emails every day, and knowing exactly what the American Red Cross is doing every day to affect people's lives and to help them. And during that period of time, Phillip, I know that there's got to be a number of stories that you could tell, but and we don't have. We only have 12 minutes, so.
Right.
But I'd like for you just to share with us a story that's kind of in the back of your mind of how the American Red Cross really helped somebody out in that worst time of their life.
Well, I think the one that really galvanized me that made me say, this is really what I want to be doing. There was a local family. They lived in a house smaller than this room, and they had 3 children in this house. Of course, almost all of our clients are people of lower income, and that was the case here. Everyone was sleeping around a warm morning stove, and of course the mattresses caught fire. So we responded to this call from the family, from the fire department, that there had been a fire. And it was immediately clear that there was fatality related to this. They had lost 2 of their sons in this fire. And I can tell you, there's no feeling in the world like that when you're looking eye to eye with someone who has went through something so traumatic, so terrible, and yet they're thankful that you took time out of your life to come and help them. It just touches you here, and I can't think of anything more satisfying to our volunteers and to myself.
And I know all your volunteers that we have, and volunteers are really the lifeblood of the American Red Cross. And we talked about the number of volunteers that we have that are serving here in the capital area chapter. But just for a few minutes, if you can tell me about, they got to be prepared when they go out there. How do we prepare for disasters? We don't welcome those at all, but how do we prepare for those disasters?
Well, it's about constantly providing training and exercises and having meetings where we, at our volunteer meetings, for instance, we talk about experiences that we've had and talk about things that we need to be working on to be better prepared for disaster, because preparation and prevention really all go together. If you're prepared for a disaster, you can actually prevent it from being worse than it could have been. So all of our volunteers are required to have basic trainings. We don't send any volunteer into a situation that might be detrimental to their health or would be not using our donated dollar to the wisest effect. So we provide a lot of training, and we provide that training over and over so that we keep exercising that training. I look at it like this: if you're a sports team and you don't practice your skill, your basketball or whatever, how are you ever going to win that game when the real thing happens? And that's what we look at it with our volunteers. We want to make sure that we're as prepared as we possibly can be, knowing that every disaster will be different, that we work at trying to keep working to prevent that disaster by being prepared and providing training not only to our volunteers, but to community organizations that want to partner with us as well.
Well, we want to welcome anyone that has a desire and a passion for volunteering. The American Red Cross is ready to accept you as a volunteer. And I think, like Gabe said, and like you've said, we're going to train you. We're going to help you get prepared to where you can make a difference in people's lives. And if you'd like to have information on how you can become involved with the American Red Cross, you can call 573-635-1132. You can ask for Phillip. You can ask for me. We'll be glad to talk with you and get you involved. Phillip, I want to thank you for what you do every day. I know that we were talking this morning, and you get phone calls at all hours of the day and night. And the passion that you have for it, I appreciate it, and I know that all of Mid-Missouri appreciates it as well. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you for watching us today on Meet the Red Cross, and we'll see you next time.